What's going on, guys? I'm Alex Trader, and with Brandon Beasley, we welcome you to the first ever episode of the 479 CardsCast. As I mentioned, this is the first episode, so I just want to give a brief introduction to what this podcast is going to be. But before I do that, I just want to remind everybody to make sure that you guys subscribe and leave a comment, however you may be listening, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Just let us know what you think, and also subscribing helps us out a lot and lets us know kind of how we're doing with uh, finding people who want to get involved into the blossoming industry that is trading cards for sports. Now, this podcast is going to be something for everyone who's enjoying kind of the boom that's happened within the card market. Brandon is a kind of our in-house expert, and I'm more of a casual in the field, but I think we're going to provide stuff that's going to help out everyone, from the people who have never heard of sports cards to someone like Brandon, or people with a lot of experience. We're going to have news from around the sports card world, as well as tips and tricks on how to be successful when you're trading or trying to find a way to get into the industry. As well as that, we have some awesome interviews lined up. We're going to be bringing in interesting people, giving their stories, and kind of giving you just a different look at how people see certain things. As well as that, we're going to have some market talk segments. We're going to have some risers, fallers, predictions on how the market's going to look, and so much more as we continue on. Brandon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing well. And I guess I want to start off with, I'm a little bit upset actually that I didn't own this card that sold earlier today. Um, late in the afternoon, there was a Luka Doncic card from 2018. It was a National Treasures, sold for $4.6 million, and the fact that I didn't own that card and wasn't in possession of it soured up my weekend a little bit.
Yeah, anything you see in the news that's selling for thousands or even millions of dollars that you just see is crazy, and you just wish that was yours and that you took the risk to maybe get that card or did everything you could to even find it. And that's just part of the game. You never know what you're going to find, and a $4.6 million sale is nothing new anymore. I mean, that's the record sale for a basketball card ever. It's not a proven player like LeBron, Jordan, Kobe, the main three people think of when they talk about proven players that they invest in. It's Luka Doncic. He's the next guy though, and people believe in him, and that's why money was being put into it. A $4.6 million deal for a 101 National Treasures rookie logo, man. That's something nowadays where that's not insane anymore.
And Luca being a top five pick, you would think he had a lot of hype behind him, but he was a guy that not too many people were sure what he was going to be. Me personally, I had a Luca card just sitting in an old binder that I found when I was just going through some stuff, and it turns out it was in pretty good condition. So I was kind of counting on him to be the MVP this season. Doesn't look like that's going to happen, but I think his value is only going to go up, as will a lot of the young players around the league. And speaking of value going up, everything's been going up in the card market the last couple months, spanning back just about a year at this point. Why do you think that is, and what kind of stuff can we expect the market to do in the future?
So I think the main thing that started the market has bubbles. It'll go up, it'll go down, it'll spike. Around whenever COVID began, everything started going up because everyone was looking for something to do while they were stuck at home, and people were interested in cards, and it just picked up, and more people saw people getting into cards, and it just kept going and going. You could not walk into a retail store nowadays and even find a pack of cards. It's just not common anymore. Before the COVID, I called the COVID boom happened, there was cards just sitting on the shelves. Now those same cards that were sitting for $5, those packs are 25, $30. And they don't even really have much in it. It's just because people love the joy of opening packs, and hopefully there's something in there, but the odds just aren't even that great.
Part of my problem is I'm fully in on packs. I love the just the randomness of opening the packs, and I'm not as much in the weeds as you are. And speaking of being in the weeds, the Bentonville Card Show is this weekend. I wasn't able to make it. But I have been to a couple of card shows with you before. I mean, how how'd this one look, and what were your pickups this weekend?
So it looked completely different when I went the first time. I went the first time out in August, and the difference between how many people were there selling and the difference between how many people were just there looking was insane. I remember just seeing people's tables set up, and they were completely different this time around. There was a lot more wax than I remember from the first time around, and there was a lot more higher end stuff. The values were a lot higher, but at the same time, your dollar bins that you'd go through trying to find something for your collection or in a future investment that could just be sitting around that nobody even is thinking about. That kind of stuff is a lot more prominent than it was a few months ago because that stuff has potential. And I'm your stuff that's ending up in dollar bins isn't your base cards anymore. It's your rookies. It's all the extra stuff because everyone's into it. So there's got to be enough to go around for everybody. For me personally, I went there. I had stuff I wanted to trade. I had stuff I wanted to sell. I had stuff I wanted to buy. And I was looking around, seeing what caught my eye. I know the very first thing I bought whenever I got there, I walked through the door, I saw supplies. Very first thing I bought 500 packs of penny sleeves just because you can never go wrong with supplies, and it was a good deal. So that's the first thing I got. I walked around a little bit, just looking around at first. Didn't really want to jump on anything yet. Just wanted to get an idea of what was there. First person I stopped at was a guy I've actually talked to multiple times. It was the only guy at the show that was set up that I really personally knew. And I looked at his stuff, just was chatting with him, seeing what was up. Ended up stopping at it, looked in his case. He was mainly just had dollar cards to $5 cards and bins. He had a little case. I saw a Shaq rookie in there. Shaq's taken off lately. So I was just curious. I was like, hey, what are you looking for on this? And he said $30. And I knew in the back of my head, I was like, oh, this market's exploded. So I'm going to take the risk without even looking at it. Just because I know the guy is a good guy. I know the price was probably a fair price, if not a good price in my favor. So I pulled the trigger on it. I ended up walking away from that, checked comps. There ended up being a $60, $70 card. Card was in really good condition. So I was really happy with that one. And it was set up in two different rooms. He was on the edge of the first room. So I walked down a hall, took some looks at some cards, ended up looking at some baseball cards from the first guy in the hall. And I was really tempted to pull the trigger on it. I don't know baseball too much, but I know I was really trying to get into it at that show. But I ended up passing on him and keep walking into the second room just because I didn't want to put all my marbles into one jar and be out before I was even to get through the whole room. So I kept going around, got into the next room. There was a dollar bin guy set up. That's all he had was dollar bins that I went through the last show I went to, and I didn't even bother this time. I was so drawn to the stuff in the cases and not the dollar bins. I mean, you can go for the dollar bins, you can go for the showcases, or you can go for both. I mean, there's stuff for everybody. I was more drawn for showcases. I got to the next table, and one of the guys I was looking for was Dak Prescott and maybe some Zeke too. Some guy had some of those out on the table. I asked him if he had any more. He had boxes behind the table, and I went through there and found some stuff. He had a Dak Prescott purple optic PSA 8 for $50. He had the sticker on it. Those raw are about 50. It was a good looking 8, so I figured I'd pull the trigger on that. And I found another Dak that threw in there for $50. You always want to try to negotiate what you can. You want to be reasonable. You want to be fair for both parties, but at the same time, you want to try to get your best bang for your buck. Fast forward, just fun fact on that card, I've already flipped that card for $20 profit to the day. And just that was just a couple days later, and just stuff like that. It's just there's a market. The market's always moving. You got to be ready, and you got to know what you're looking for. Next table over, guy had big case, a lot of solid stuff. I know there was a Aaron Rodgers rookie that was a Beckett 10, and it was $5,500. He had a KD refractor in there that was a Beckett 9.5, and there was just a bunch of really big stuff that I was just drawn to. And I ended up, I know a lot about the Deshaun Watson market. I hopped on that before it boomed. He had a Deshaun Watson PSA 10 Panini out of 199. And numbered cards, I mean, there's only so much of them. It's not like your normal cards where they just produce so many and you just don't know how much is out there. And it was a 10, so it can't get any better than that. He had a $500 price tag on it. I couldn't find any comps on it, so I just had to go with what I believed in. I ended up trading and paying cash on it, but ended up getting it and ended up moving stuff that I really just didn't love. And you want to get out of the stuff that if the whole market ended today and you have what you have, are you going to be happy with what you got, or are you going to wish you had something different? And I always think of that whenever I'm going to shows. And if it's laying around and and it's not necessarily something I love, I'm going to try to get rid of it because I want to move into something I love. So I ended up getting that, walked around a bit more, talked to some people, didn't really find too much. And then I got to the back right corner of the room and I ran into this guy. Um, and I was just talking to him, looking through his cases, and all of a sudden, he was looking through my cards because I wanted to see if he was interested in buying or if I saw something trading. And I ran into a Brett Favre 1 of 1 that was signed not once but twice, which I've never seen before. And I just love that card. And he ended up picking out a bunch of stuff he was interested in for trade. He was looking for about $1,000 in value on the Brett Favre, and he had about $700 worth of stuff picked out for trade value wise, and I was pretty comfortable with the gap for covering that with cash, and it was just something that I was comfortable pulling the trigger on. So I ended up picking that up, and that was actually my first true 101 other than printing plates that I've ever had, and it's just such a cool card to look at. I looked at his buddy's table a little bit, but I was just so in shock that I just got that my mind was just blown, and I just walked right past everybody's stuff after that. I don't think I talked to anybody. I don't think I just looked, and I was just barely looking because I was so excited. So I ended up going all the way through, didn't pick up anything else, and then came back around, did another lap. Picked up probably a card here or there. Don't really recall too much, but I spent a good 4 hours there and went home, sat back, uh, marked through. I had all my stuff for trade. I had priced. I had marked what I had left, marked what I had traded, and put together some new inventory for day two to put together. And I came back the next day. Another guy I talked to a little bit at a card show before, not the one, but the next some before. I stopped at his table first thing. He did a big deal the day before I eavesdrop in on. It was about a $10,000 deal. Some guy was trying to buy out his whole collection, and it was just insane. And I was just digging through his bins. He had a Aaron Donald Topps Chrome Refractor. It was priced at $20. I had traded one of those for $50 value the day before. I actually had another one on me, so I already had another one on me ready to go. I knew those were at 50. He had it at 20. It looked good. I offered him 15. He took it, and then ended up selling that a little bit later at the show. Um, and then I rotated through there, and first room I didn't really see anything. Actually, flashback, the first day at the show, I went through the second time around. I was looking at a Kobe Bryant Fleer Metal rookie, and I was looking at that, and I just didn't like the price he had on it. The guy didn't want to trade anything I had, wasn't interested in any of it. And a guy was looking at a Tim Duncan Metal Universe PSA 9, which was Tim Duncan's rookie year, uh, in one of his cases over. And he was asking him how much it was, and then the guy was like, "This is my lowest number." And the guy walked away. He's like, "I'll think about it." And in the back of my head, I was like, Tim Duncan. I've heard of that name. I know Tim Duncan. I know his market a little bit. His market really hasn't gone up yet. He's not in the Hall of Fame yet. He'll be in the Hall of Fame here in a little bit. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna look at comps, check comps is about dead on for what comps are, and I feel comfortable in pulling the trigger on that because I know it's gonna go up, and it's not something I'm gonna move right away and I'll put away. So I ended up pulling the trigger on that and bought that in full the first day as well. So flash forward back in the day too. I was going through the hall. I checked the table that I looked at that had the baseball cards I was looking at day one, and they were gone. So I just didn't pull the trigger fast enough on those. Debated too long, and they were gone, which is very common. If you pass on one thing, it could be gone the next minute, as I did with the Tim Duncan. I heard someone talking over. I got it the next minute he left, and he probably came back later that day and was like, "Dang, I wish I would have pulled the trigger on that, but I didn't, and now it's gone, and someone else has it." And so I went through his table. I flipped through some of his binders, grabbed a few cards I was familiar with. They were '90s cards that I was familiar with, and I knew that I got them for a good deal. I'll be able to sell those on later for a couple bucks profit. Went down the case. There was a guy there that wasn't there the first day. He had solely just had baseball. Well, baseball is not my strong suit. He had a card that I was familiar with. I have Cody Bellinger's Real Ones autograph PSA 10. It's probably my best card I got at the moment. He had the base card version of that, and I knew it was interesting. It was a card I'm going to be watching for the signature version, so I might as well watch it for the base version. So I ended up picking that up about my second or third lap around that day. Um, I ended up going back around. The guy I picked up a Dak Prescott I talked about earlier. I stopped at his table. I picked up another Dak Prescott and I picked up another Zeke. Both were PSA nines. One was a jersey card and one wasn't. They were a good deal on it. Grading going up, it's costing more than 25, $30 to grade nowadays. And the cards were 25, $30. So that wasn't something that I was really going to pass up on. I went to the next table. The next table is the guy I got the Deshaun Watson from. Nothing really stood out that time around. I didn't really miss anything, but I brought some new inventory. I already made deals with that guy the day before. He recognized me. We talked. He looked at my cards. I wasn't really interested in trading. He was interested in buying what I had. Obviously, they're there to make money. They need to have room. They need to have margin. I had my stuff priced, and he had a price in mind. So we ended up meeting pretty much closer to his price because he's got to make money at the end of the day. But I knew what I had into those cards, and at the end of the day, it was worth it for me, and it gave me more cash in my pocket for something else that I may have wanted. So I pulled the trigger on that, got a little bit extra cash, walked around a little bit, looked at some wax. Just none of it really caught my mind. Nothing crazy. A buddy of mine picked up a 2017 Optic Blaster, which is Patrick Mahomes' rookie year. I think that was a steal. It was the only one at the show. He picked it up real quick. I wish I would have even thought about it, but I just don't really look at wax too much. It's not something I'm crazy about, but I do want to get some to sit on because I know that has true value, even if it's not open, because you never know what's going to be sitting inside of those. And then actually the first day, I'm forgetting everything. I forget the first day more than anything, just because it was such a crazy experience that I got the Favre. Before I was leaving, I stopped at a guy's table. He was looking at my cards to trade. I was showing him, and he was interested in a lot of them. And I picked up a Zeke rookie silver Beckett 9.5 Gem Mint Plus. Um, and a couple others, just getting rid of some stuff that I really just didn't care about for stuff that I liked. I got a Tracy McGrady rookie that's a pop 13. It's nothing crazy, but it's just something you don't see every day. And he ended up having a Jordan card. He had it marked $200. I checked comps. There was three that day that ended at 100. It was a Jordan 97 die cut, and it was just a crazy looking card. It had really good condition, and I wanted it. And I had that and another card up to try to trade for it, and he just didn't want to move it for the $100 value. So I ended up getting rid of the other card that I wanted with it, and I had about $220 worth of trade value. He wanted 200. I figured he was going to take it, and it was something I would have been happy trading out of and into, and he just didn't want to move it. He was very, very stubborn about it. He was like, if you come back with $200 cash, I'll give it to you. And I didn't want it for 200 cash. It just wasn't worth the 200 because it was at $100 at the time. So I walked to the next table and I saw a Kaboom, Dwayne Haskins. Kabooms are the coolest cards you'll see for football, especially rookie wise. And I just loved it. And the guy I had a card of equal value that I wanted to trade, and we just did a straight up trade for it. And I'll be sitting on that one, hoping he pans out in Pittsburgh or somewhere else. He does something. Hopefully, he gets his career right.
Yeah, Kabooms are one of the cooler looking rookie cards I saw, and then you also got the best quarterback in the 18 class. So I mean, it's tough to really find a miss there, you know.
That's true. So that was my sum up for day one. I've kind of bounced between day one and day two. So back to day two, I've gone through the first hallway. I've gotten into the second room. I've gone through it most of the way. I looped back to the guy that I first did a deal with for the Favre the day before. Was hanging out there with one of my buddies, who's a baseball guy who I was trying to just gain baseball knowledge from. Just talked to them for a while. Ventured to a table behind them. Saw a Deshaun Watson optic rated rookie. I knew the price on those. I moved one the other day. Ended up buying that straight out. just for me to realize I was comping it off of the price of a red and yellow and not the raw base. But I still got it at like a $10 or $20 value under, and so it was okay. It wasn't my best, but it was good. At the end of the day, though, it was worth it. And we sat there and talked cards with the guy I did the deal with the Favre with and his buddy for about an hour, just talking cards, and ended up doing another lap trying to find some baseball cards. Ended up in the hallway. We stopped and I picked up a Louise Robert die cut from Topps Chrome Ben Baller. Nothing that I'm crazy knowledgeable about, but I know that Louise Robert has potential, and I know Ben Baller is a premium product for baseball, and it was a really sick looking card. Got it for a little under comps. That was something I was happy about. And then we ended up looping back to the same guy I got the far from, talking again, just because the guy next door had a Ray Rice, not Ray Rice. What am I thinking?
Possibly
Um,
Ray Lewis.
it wasn't Ray
Ray
Lewis.
Rice is certainly not going to have any value in his cards.
Yeah, I had to get rid of those right away. I was thinking of Jerry Rice. He had a Jerry Rice PSA 4 and a Jerry Rice PSA 7 rookie. We were wondering the price on that, so we came back. I had him way overpriced. We knew he probably wasn't going to budge on it, so we didn't bother. So we just came back and started talking to the same guy we were talking to before, and we were about to leave. And I see a card that I overlooked. I was sat at that table for probably 2 hours making conversation, looking through this guy's cards, looking at his cases, and I completely overlooked it. He had a um, Derrick Henry Spectra RPA out of 25 that was graded a gem mint 9.5. And patch cards, you grade those and they don't grade very well. They get damaged super easy. So the fact that it was a player I knew, player's market that I knew pretty well, and it was a really high grade, I was like, this is a really nice card. I was like, here's some cards I have. See if there's anything you're interested in. And what's the price you have on this Derrick Henry? He said $300, and I just knew in the back of my head I was like $300 is a steal for this. And so he just looked through my cards again, and he picked out three cards. One of them being that Deshaun Watson I just bought for $20 under value. So I got basically saved $20 there. Those three cards amounted to about $200. Paid $100 cash on it. It was a little bit in my favor, honestly, the deal wise, but since we made a big deal the day before and everything, he was comfortable doing so. So I pulled the trigger on that, and that was probably my best investment of the day and my favorite investment of the day, and one of the coolest cards I've seen in a long while. And the guy next to him, his buddy, the whole time was just sitting watching, and my buddy ended up picking up a Fernando Tatis autograph that was unlicensed. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's an autograph. You're not going to see those every day. We went back through. We were leaving about one of the last tables before we left, and we were looking for some Fernando Tatis. My buddy picked up Fernando Tatis Topps base, and I saw a Tatis card I've never seen. It was a red Tatis. I'll actually get it here for the YouTube channel can see this red Tatis I've never seen before, and I was really curious about it. I asked the guy. Supposedly, it was part of this members program. There's only about 1,000 guys in it, and they get like this special pack, and you have a chance at pulling the Tatis or really any card that you can pull out of packs. I mean, you're hoping for Tatis out of those pretty much because he's the guy right now in those products, and I'd never seen it. I asked the guy like, "Hey, how'd you get this?" Was telling me about it, and I was like, "That's really cool." I mean, it's a short print. There's only about 1,000 people that got the pack, so who knows how many of those exist. So I asked him, I was like, "Could you do $20 on it?" He's like, "I'm firm on 25. I think that's a steal." And I only found one comp on it. It was $31 from 2 months ago. And I was like, his market's gone up since then. I was confident on taking it for 25. I ended up looking it up more that I learned keywords that he gave me um, about the card because I knew nothing about it. And the only comps I found on it were $85, $90 sitting. So for $25, I got into a card that's worth three times that. So it was something I could not complain about. And baseball market that I want to learn in and jump into. It was something that was good to jump into. Going a little off topic from the card show, A lot of people in the card world know the guy Sasha T. He's one of the guys I really was inspired by with his content and stuff. He actually is not. He doesn't know anything about baseball. I don't know anything about baseball, but he knows there's a market, and when there's a market, there's money to be made. He recently bought into a Fernando Tatis PSA 10 out of 5, and he traded and bought into it at I think it was about $26,000 value. As he doesn't even know the market, he just knows there's money to be made, and that's player to make money in, and he pulled the trigger on it, and that's what I did at a much smaller scale, but I was confident with that purchase for sure.
Yeah, and the card show, I mean, for anyone who hasn't been to a card show, I've only been to some of the smaller scale ones, and it's bananas. You just wouldn't expect to see something like it, and especially given how the pandemic's kind of impacted in-person face-to-face meeting, it is certainly nice to go and have that kind of just human element of trading that I know you've talked to me a lot. Like that's one of your favorite parts about being able to go to the shows and actually meet people and talk to people and kind of gain their perspective on things. um, Something where you might not be able to get that human element has taken over America and other parts of the world. And of course, for those who have not been living under a rock, I'm talking about NBA Top Shot. Now, NBA Top Shot, we did a full article over on tradertalksports.com talking about the benefits and kind of the downfalls of Top Shot as well as what it is. That's a great read. So if you guys want some full in depth kind of understanding what Top Shot is and why it's working, make sure you guys go check that out. But a brief explanation. You're buying NBA highlights, so you can buy like an Alex Caruso assist, a Damian Lillard 3 pointer, a Bradley Beal steal, and they're going for a lot of money. I don't know that the value is necessarily expected right away, but things are very expensive. And what gives them the value is the fact that they're NFTs or non fungible tokens, which, if you recall, Logan Paul sold some art that were NFTs and made a lot of money off of it. The benefit of NFT is essentially like with cards that are numbered, you're able to set it out of a certain number. And while the highlight isn't technically yours, that exact version of the highlight with the surrounding kind of border and the message behind it is your highlight. So Brandon, I know you aren't the biggest fan of Top Shot. I'm going to give you a chance to explain why you don't think it's going to work, and then I am going to completely blow your mind and put you on to what is one of the most interesting things going on in America right now.
Awesome. So Top Shot to me, it's a really interesting market. If there's a market, there's money to be made at the end of the day. I'm just not seeing where it's stable, and that's why I'm not really one that's much into Top Shot. The fact that a LeBron dunk sold for over $200,000, and it's just something I can watch on YouTube. I get it, it's numbered out of 49. I would much rather for $200,000 have a Tom Brady autograph that's out of 49. I'm sure that's probably even cheaper than that for $200,000. So I mean that's just insane to me that there's a market like that and where the money is coming from for that. But then again, at the same time, where's the money coming from for the Luka Doncic for $4 million, who's not even playing as well as people expected him to do this year? But it's just like an investment point at that point, and that's where maybe the $200,000 for the LeBron out of 49 was something that eventually is going to be worth millions. And it's not impossible, but it's just nothing that I really am confident about. I know Top Shot, they have a pretty decent market from what I've seen. They release packs, I think it's every week or every other week. There's a line that you get into to buy the packs. I think one of the releases was about 60,000 packs, and there was like 180 to 240,000 people waiting. So really, only about 1 in 4, 1 in 3 people got a pack. So I mean, there's a demand, and the supply is low, and that's really popular. And I know that's a market that's in cards is works, in fashion that works, like Supreme, anything hype beast sneakers. If there's a limited quantity and there's a high supply, the market's going to rise. And I see where there's demand for Top Shot. My thing is, I don't know how it's stable, so it's nothing that I would be confident sticking with.
And like you mentioned in the article, it's like any other investment. I mean, you're going to have the ebbs and the flows of the market, and no investment's a sure thing. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a way to do it. The loophole would be patched. But Top Shot has been, I mean, very rapidly rising over the past couple days, and I understand your point that you personally, I mean, would not go to watch a highlight for $200,000, but I mean, not to be too graphic here, OnlyFans is a huge thing in America right now, and there's certainly other methods of receiving that same type of content. It's not necessarily just about seeing the video, or like with cards, you can look up the picture that's on cards, but there is that kind of you owning that picture of the cards, or you owning that card, or you owning that highlight. I think is a big part of why that market is so high, and why it's very, very similar to the card market, in my opinion. I mean, a completely foreign point of view, the idea of putting someone's face on a card and it selling for $4.6 million is absolutely insane. But then you get down to it, and like you mentioned, there's a lot of people at card shows. There's a lot of people out trying to get into the sports card market because there is that interest behind it, and where there's interest, there's always going to be money to be made, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's very true, and the reference you made, I never even thought about, but I mean, that's true. There's things out there that are free, and then there's paid versions, and I mean, the paid versions of things, at the end of the day, there's free ways to get it. Like movies, there's pirated movies. You can watch them for free, or you can go to the movie theater and spend $20 a ticket to go watch a movie. At the end of the day, there's a market for stuff, and there's a market for the free stuff, and it just depends on what you're going to spend and what experience you want. So I get that with Top Shot. It has the same thing. You can look it up on YouTube, or you can actually be a part of it.
And for legal purposes, I just want to make sure that there is no advocation for pirating movies or anything else along the lines of what we've been talking about. Piracy is not a victimless crime, I believe, is what the old movies always used to tell us. Um, I'm in on Top Shot, man. I really think that it's the next big thing for sports memorabilia trading. If the deal with the NFL goes through, I think we're going to see a huge jump in the popularity of this, because as big as basketball is in the United States, football is a whole nother animal.
Yeah, that's very true. And me personally, I'm a big football guy. I don't really follow basketball that much. And honestly, thinking about it, the idea of that in football just excites me. And honestly, I'd hop on it if it was football. So if this was NBA shot, not NBA Top Shot, I'd probably be all over it. And I think that would be what would make my mind change on it. So I feel like with Top Shot, it sets the foundation for the market. And if it ends up being super successful, like it possibly can be, and it's mirrored over to a football market, I'd be all over it for sure.
So final verdict on Top Shot. I changed your mind, right? We're in on the Top Shot train.
I'd say I'd consider it. I would not wait hours in line to buy a Top Shot pack, and I wouldn't invest my money into it quite yet. But give it a little bit of time, a month or two. If it's still stable and there's still money to be made at the end of the day, I'm all for it.
Fair enough. And I mean, hey, there was some kind of opinion sway there. That's why we have the conversations. Um, that was really all we have for this show. We think Top Shot's a big enough story, as well as that card show was. I mean, you had the in-depth breakdown of how the deals were made, and hopefully that helps people. I know it helped me, because when I go to a card show, I'm just looking for Ohio State players for under $2, because that's my personal collection. So seeing the perspective of trying to find someone who's in there to make a lot of money, and find cards that hold their value is really interesting for the casual fan, as well as some tips and tricks in there of figuring out prices, trying to get things going. um like I said, this is the first episode, and we're available on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. The YouTube name is 479 Cards. There's not the CardsCast part of things, but make sure if you guys did enjoy to subscribe, leave a comment, let us know what you think, as well as a rating if you're on Apple or Spotify. And if you know any friends that are interested in kind of getting into the card scene, this is going to be the podcast for that. It's going to teach you guys some ways to get involved to where, whether you have $10 you're ready to deal with, or thousands, you're going to have some kind of guidance in what the way to go is. um we're going to be putting out new episodes every Monday, with all the stuff I talked about at the beginning of the episode. And make sure, if you guys are wanting some extra bonus content, card specialized, go to 479 cards on Instagram. Or if you're just a big sports fan and you want to kind of have the cards as well as everything else, TTSN Home on Instagram and Twitter is the home of all things Trader Talk Sports Network. It's going to have all the articles, the polls, the graphics, all that good stuff. For Brandon Beasley, I'm Alex Trader, and we will see you guys next time.